Welcome, everybody, to BoardSTIFF. All right, guys, here we are, the first episode of BoardSTIFF. How we all doing out there?
There it is.
Good? All right, we got everybody on this. All right, so what we thought we'd do is we'd run down a quick intro of who we are, and then we're going to jump into the basics of why we're doing what we're doing here, and then get right to it, as promised, as pithy as possible. So we go by our, I guess, I don't know, is it surnames? Not me. I go by Bogue. Who else we got here? Next.
You got Wilt.
Johnny.
And I'm Chris.
Very cool. All right, guys. What we want to first talk about is why we're doing this show, because we've talked many times as gamer friends and so forth about this really important scenario, especially now that we've been cooped up here in the house for a number of months and so forth, is we all love playing online together with Tabletop, simulator, what have you. Anytime we have a chance to go online, it's awesome. But really, we do want to try to bring our close family into this so we can continue our gaming and so forth, because we can't leave. And it really stirred this idea that as we looked around for content online, trying to find something that could help us, I guess, indulge our other folks, our significant other, right, involved, wife, whom have you, your mother-in-law, anybody that's out there, trying to bring them into the gaming world. So what we thought we'd do each time we jump in together, we would actually review a game that actually can or can't make sense for folks to pick up and bring to the table, that you know you're going to get kind of non-gamers, can we agree on that, or limited gamers to play as well. So does that make sense? Any comments?
Yeah, well, there's certainly a lot of stuff out there where, gamer so-called experts are telling gamer so-called experts exactly how some intricate mechanic of card play works, their new favorite thing, which is awesome if you're into card play mechanics, which, some of us probably are. But when you're trying to get a game to a table with somebody who's visiting with you or somebody who's never played that kind of game before, they're not interested in what a neat card mechanic they have. They just want to know if the game is fun and if they're going to be able to understand it.
Perfectly. Yeah, well said. What else, guys?
Can you get through the rules explanation before they've left the table, right? That's one of the hardest parts. It's funny, like when you look at a game like Monopoly, I think Wilt was saying before, you play Monopoly with some of your family. It's actually not a quick game to teach. It's just that we all know it. So people say, I'll play a simple game like Monopoly, but I mean, there's moving and there's hotels and how you put the houses out in a special way, and there's some
mortgage prices.
in there.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the mortgage. I think a game, if you can get through the first 2 turns or 3 turns, if you got a general idea of how to play it from there on out, I think that's the type of game that like the games we're going to talk about today are just like that. You're able to do a couple of turns, watch a couple of turns with the people who know how to play it, and from there you kind of pick it up and run with it. So I mean, those are the games that I enjoy.
So yeah, so what I think.
Right, so I just played Food Chain Magnet with a friend who's a hardcore gamer, and that's a game that could never work, because if you haven't set yourself up in the first 3 turns, you are just catching up the whole game.
Right.
It's a game.
Terraforming Mars is similar to that. I found too that you could fall behind quickly, and it's you're in trouble after that. So.
Yeah. I destroyed my family the first few times we played, and I haven't won since. Now that they know how to play, so.
Right. Well, you got some smart kiddos there too. Yeah, I think the theme though is, and I think we talk about, and I'm sure we'll take some maybe some questions and stuff down the line as well, is if you're going to bring the game to the table, it's obvious you got to know the game ahead of time. You can't be a rules reader at that point, sitting at the table. Maybe some updates like, oh, I'm not sure what that said, and go to it. But if you don't have the game set up and you're sitting down, you crack it open and break out this book, that right away for a non-gamer is going to be like, I'm out. You know what I mean? I don't have time, or they're on their phone, or it's going to be gone. So I think that's
Same
important.
thing with my kids.
Yeah.
They do not want to watch me spend 10 minutes setting up the board.
Exactly. You got to breathe. And I do it every time on a bunch of games we'll talk about, like HeroScape, different things. You just preset it up so that when they come to the table, they're ready to play. And that's kind of the workload that you do, right? To set it up. And as a gamer that loves the game and wants your family to play, you kind of create that atmosphere going into it, right? So what we'll do on this show and each show that we review is that we'll take a look at just really two factors on it. One is going to be the simplicity of the game. We'll rate it 1 to 10, give you a little bit of room in there, right? You know, how easy is it for somebody to sit down after you kind of know it, right, as well, and explain it to somebody to be able for them to go, oh, I get it. And I think getting it is the first step, right? Much less do I like it or not like it. If you can't get it, you're automatically not going to like it. So understanding the simplicity. And the second one is I call the dust factor, meaning is it something that they're going to want to bring back out over and over again? You may not want to do it as much, but they want to do it, right? So the longevity of the game, how long it lasts and it works and everything is going to be important as well to that. So I think those are the only two things, and we'll go through that as we jump through. So to give you an example, for instance, like simplicity of a game, one would be a Go Fish or a Yahtzee game, if you will, right? And now again, a 10 would be, in my opinion, Illuminati. Would be something that is a
we have not met a 10.
Jump in with me on the 10. What do you think's a 10, guys?
Complexity.
Agricola.
Okay. Yep, good one.
Axis and Allies.
Yes,
Ooh.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you know me, I'm a simple-minded dude. Sometimes that one even gets to me. I'm like, nope, not happening for me, much less am I going to get my, family who's actually probably more intelligent and could play the game better than I. They're not going to want to listen to me.
If you include fiddliness, we have Lewis and Clark, which is actually a pretty fun game and the family likes it. But there's a lot of fiddly bits in it that are easy to forget. Like between turns, you move the camp and then you move your scout. And
yeah.
if you spend too much time stopping to set up the next turn and you just lose attention and engagement.
Great point. So in that case, that would be higher on the scale of simplicity. Very good.
Yeah,
absolutely. The second one, for example, when we talk about the dust factor, the playability, these are all judgment calls, right? It's based on each individual household and it goes in. So like for mine, a 1, which is the easiest way to on the table, is HeroScapes. Like that game I can bring out every time and they'll show up to the table to play it, right? So that's a good example of, to me, a perfectly, it's a perfect one, number 1 for the dust factor. It's always going to be around until I die. Matter of fact, you're probably going to bury me with that game. But the 10, I don't know, what is a 10?
They don't make coffins that big, Shane.
What's that?
Yeah.
They don't make coffins that big, Bogue.
I got
since you have every expansion.
Crazy. Yeah. What do you think on a 10? What is a game that that you've seen where it's like, oh, all right, we played it, good times, and gone?
A few times and then done.
Yeah. I couldn't come up with one, so I'm being straight up with you guys because I'm a gamer, right? But
yeah,
I guess I'd have to go look in my closet. And see
I'll tell you one.
Ready?
I'll give you one. Dead of Winter, which we'll review in a little bit, was a great game. My family played it. They're into the zombie thing and everything, but it won't come back out.
We did the same thing, and I sold it on eBay and bought a new game. So that's actually cool. It's hard for me to think of it because if we don't play a game, I move it on to somebody else who wants it.
Right.
And then
yeah.
Unfortunately, like I just throw it into my closet and it stays there because I don't sell anything, unfortunately. But yeah, that's a good point. So
let me ask you about HeroScape. So you called HeroScape a 1.
Yep.
But setup time is significant.
Correct. Yeah. So, but
it's
the simplicity of the game is 1. So in other words,
it's simple play.
Right. So it goes back to my point of what we're not discussing as far as these 1 or 2 points is the setup time. Setup time, I leave, and I want to be very precise, is that is left to the gamer, right? The hardcore gamer that wants to play with his family. It may take 2 minutes. It may take 30 minutes. In my case, when I'm building these long stacks of, 30 minutes. But you know what I mean? So I don't want to add that into it as another thing because that's the onus on the gamer, I think, to read, learn, and also preset. I'm talking about when we get it ready to go, what are the 2 things that are going to bring them to the table and they say, yes, let's keep playing it, and they become more involved into the game. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So good question. Good thought on that. Okay. So you ready to do it? Segment 1. We'll jump in. I don't know if this is even the best one to start with after we've kind of set our premise, but I do want to do it. And we're going to do this is high production value, guys. By the way, look at this. Whoa! What? Yep, baby. All right. So,
by the way, isn't that was like a $10 buy too, wasn't it?
Oh, dude, I got a crazy deal. We played this at one of our Alcon places. And long story short, I went right to the eBay because I buy everything as soon as I like it. Johnny knows that. And I went on literally like 2 minutes left in this one. It was like $9.99. Nobody bid on it. I said, I'll take it. Boop, bought it. $10.
Yeah.
Base game. Good stuff. So absolutely. All right. So let's talk. So first of all,
well, wait, did you mention what the game is for those that are on audio only, or did we just reveal
the box? We didn't at all mention what the game was.
We did. Everybody's like, okay,
everyone that's on audio is like, I heard a lot of whooping.
Right.
Yeah,
all right.
This person in the country to listen to this is going to be wondering what's going on here.
Right. Good point.
Well, actually, they would have looked at the title at the top of the episode.
Right. All right. It's Josh Whedon's FireFly, the game.
The game.
Find a crew, find a job, keep flying. That's how it goes.
With a box full of beautiful people.
It really, oh my God, isn't it ever? all of them are, and even the dudes, I'd be like, hey, no, just kidding.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. Huh? First of all, I want to ask the question before we do this, and I think there's some real value to this, especially because we're talking about families now. How important is it for them to watch the series before playing this game now? I actually think it's important based on our thematic and what we're doing in this.
Super huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be spoiler alert, but game not worth playing if you do not understand what's going on in the universe.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I don't know either, but that's
I'm the same. I've never seen it.
Wilts, jump in.
Yeah, I've never seen the show. We played this at Alcon back in February. I fell in love with the game. I am going to watch the series, but I don't think you necessarily need to know the series to enjoy the game.
Okay,
but I think you would probably enjoy it more.
Gamer, right? So we're now saying, would your wife do that, right? Would you come in and play it without watching the show?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The primary selling point of this game is that moment when you flip over some cards and, oh, it's Kaylee. I love Kaylee. There she is. She can be on my ship.
Kaylee.
Right. And 3 wrenches.
Because of course Kaylee. But, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But the same thing's true if it's, I'm trying to think who else shows up in the decks, but, River Tam comes up. Oh, not really a great card because she's so crazy, but I'm going to take it because it's River and she's awesome.
She's got crazy eyes. I love it.
She's got crazy eyes. She's got crazy everything.
Yeah.
She has crazy
eyes. I think if you know the series, it takes a slightly above average game because I think it's above average and and makes it a great game because when River comes up, you can go, it totally makes sense that you don't know what you're going to get out of her until you roll and you see what you get.
Yep. Oh, she went back to the ship. Yeah, that's typical. Just when I needed her.
It makes sense that Kaylee is 3 wrenches and you can re-roll because she's so good at what she does, right? And the mechanics and the theme tie together so well.
Right. So
that makes it a great game for me.
Yeah, so we agree then in this case, even though, Will, to your point, absolutely. So for a gamer, I find that you're right. I think it's a great game. As he said, it's above average game, which means an average gamer will like the game no matter what, if they saw it or not. I would agree with that 100%. The question then is where we are right now. Do you think that you have to, I think we're agreeing then, and I want to hear your Wills. Do you think then your wife has to watch the series before she would play that?
I
think it's certainly going to help.
I think if she enjoyed the series, it may coax her into playing it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'm quite with you that this is an above average game, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
I think it is.
I own it. I love it. I have played it and I was eager to play it again when we kind of reviewed it the other day. But having played it again, I remember why it's been so long since I took that box out of my closet.
Really? Yeah.
If we played, so first we kind of almost played with all the expansions because it was a tabletop simulator and you
information overload.
Right. But if we played the game tomorrow, we'd get 4 turns in the time it took us to do a half a turn because we got past that learning momentum, I think.
So
Right, but that's exactly the activity you're going to have to go through with every new person who plays this game.
so that's what I'm
unless
trying to
you've
get at,
played
is
it
that
6 times in a row.
right. So
Yep.
in that case, and we'll rate it here in a second. I have a feeling that's going to be a major piece of it. Is that you know, the thing we start talking about is the depth of the game on those turns, right? And to get things started and running, because we can always talk about the, like, you know, the value as a gamer. Gamers talking to gamers, like the customization of the ship, how awesome that is, which it is, I believe. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The RPG type of feel and setting of it, you know, because you get a crew and you're developing everything. That's awesome, but it's not something that a non-gamer is going to kind of quickly relate to, right? On that, and they're gonna be like, okay, that's kind of cool. I got this ship, but I got all these cards. Versus us looking at it as it's an expand, or it's like,
what does +1 wrench mean? What is this important? Am I ever going to need this feature? I mean, even a person who's a gamer and an optimizer, a min-maxer kind of gamer, the game is kind of overwhelming because you don't really know what your objective is. I mean, yes, there's a card that physically tells you what your objective is, but you don't know. I need 9 wrenches and I need to roll a thing. Okay. Is that easy to do? Is that hard to do? How long is it going to take me to build up my crew and my ship to get to a level where I'm going to be able to achieve that objective? So
I think, first of all, when the game is on the table, I think it's a thing of beauty with all of those cards and the
gorgeous,
isn't it? I mean, we've got pictures from Houston where the entire table's full. And I like the game because you pick up speed in it. In other words, when you're first learning it, okay, it's a little slow, but it's a game where I can be doing action while everybody else around me is doing their turn. In other words, I can go search the store or the shops, and I can. So that's why I think the game. You have to, or it'll take
8 hours
forever. Yeah.
Right.
We played forever and didn't come close to finishing, I don't think. We played
which is
tabletop
again,
and
downside
finished.
of that, right? And we need to rate that on it, but
did you have fun? Because I mean, if you spent 4 hours, and
well,
you
we
had
didn't want to
fun,
leave. We didn't want to. We spent more than 4 too, I think, because we were supposed to clear out of there. 7 hours, and we could have gone another 5.
And enjoyed it, right? Johnny, what were you gonna say?
So the things Chris mentioned and Will's mentioned, you know, the it's tough to finish it and you don't know how to optimize and you kind of don't know what you're going to get. I love the game for those reasons.
Because your family, would your family do that, right?
Well, that's a different question. So I call it an above average game because I love a game where I do plan ahead and then everything I planned falls apart, but it's so great in the story that, like, okay, I've got all my wrenches and all my guns and I went and I'm going to go look for trouble and I've got to talk my way out of it. Crap.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Or it's
I
full
don't care
of
if I lose.
other player intrigue as well, too, because another player can really hammer you with the reavers, and they can really take you out of your stride on where you thought you were going, and and
so
turn
we
it
stopped
into a
playing
nightmare.
last night, right at the point where I moved reavers onto the other 2 guys' ships. So the first turn when we pick up again is going to be these guys getting attacked by.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. So as we start, let's talk about it. So if we do a rating on that, okay, and the simplicity on a 1 to 10, I'll go last. We'll start Johnny, Chris, and then Wilts. What do you guys think? What do you give it?
From a 1 to 10, I give it a solid 7.
Okay.
Remember, I'm rating games I've played. I haven't played super complex games just because I shy away from them because I don't.
So one.
Wait, are you rating just the simplicity?
Yeah. So 1 is the
1 being easy, 10 being.
And 10 being the hardest game you've ever played, right? Where he says about a 7, right, Johnny?
For me, it's about a 7.
Yeah. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's about right. I mean, it's certainly not a super technical game. I mean, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of interactions, there's a lot of cards. So when you're first learning the game, you're doing a lot of reading. This is definitely not a game for people who do not read well.
Yep.
You're picking up cards, you're figuring out what they mean. There's a lot of thinking going on. but the mechanics of the game are actually pretty simple. I mean, you have basically 3 or 4 resources that you're managing. You know, you have your 3 attributes that you're using to do your tasks, and then you've got your fuel and parts that you're carrying on your ship. I mean, there's a couple of commodities and whatnot, but they don't necessarily play into the game.
Yeah, you don't have to carry fugitives.
It's not, this isn't Puerto Rico. This isn't Stone Age. I mean, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think 7. I mean, it's certainly not a game you can explain in 10 minutes.
Right. Okay. So 7, which makes it tough to bring to the table. I get it. Wiltz, what do you think?
Yeah, I would probably give it around that as well. I think once you know it, or once you've played it once, I think it becomes pretty easy as far as mechanics, like Chris was saying. But when you first start, everybody's having to watch the guy who knows how to play it, kind of watch what he's doing, and that can take some time. So yeah, I'd say right around 6 or 7.
About a 7. Okay, so we got 7, 7, 7 on that. Yeah, I agree. I'm willing to go with when I say if they watch the series, right, and actually involved in it, which is I guess a prerequisite of what we're talking about here. So we'll agree if you don't watch a series at all, you shouldn't even bring it to the table. So if you bring it to the table after watching the series, or at least the first episode and the last episode, which are both movies, aren't they? About 2 hours long. I actually drop it down to a 6, and versus you guys, because I do think that if you do your prep ahead of time, you know the game, like you guys are working through it yourselves, right? Understanding, but if you know the game, it does take that 2 or 3, but then it's pretty a simplistic type of game. So I do think it does kind of fall in there. So if you got some heady relatives, and only you know what I mean? Does your kid drool, or does he know his math? Is there an opportunity for the family to get it and dive in? If they're that kind, you're going to love this game, and I think you can even drop to maybe a 4. But if it's something that they're more used to, like the straight, very simplistic type of games, then it's going to push it definitely up to an 8. So I'm trying to do the average there and say that 6 would make sense on that.
Yeah, and you got to have a lot of space for the game too.
It's a big game.
Big table.
If all you're dealing with is a little coffee table.
That's almost another entire
exactly.
thing. What spatial do you need on it, right?
And the expansion's double the size of the board, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about the board. That's
it's
horrible.
Enormous.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with the basic set and the board, you know what I mean? It's actually doable, but you start expanding the board out, and then you start looking at it going, okay, now we're only 3 of us playing. Well, they're a million miles away from each other. It changes the whole dynamic of the game as well as you go through it.
I mean, even the basic game needs a lot of table space, because not only do you need the board, but you need to have 8, 9 decks of cards and their discard piles that are all uniquely laid out, not scrambled together. You play it on Tabletop Simulator, you don't really care what happens to all those discards or cards that get removed from the game, because you don't have to clean it up later. But when you're playing with your own set, all of that stuff has to stay sorted. You need a place to put the cards that you're not using anymore, and then you all have these little shipboards. So yeah, that's a big real estate game. All
right, so we got 6, 6, 6, or I'm sorry, 7, 7, 7, 6 on that. Last one is the dust factor, if you will. If this is something that they do get into, right, and you do bring it to the table and they love and play, what do you think? Is it going to be something that's going to be played often? Is it worth the value of buying? Let's start with you, Wiltz.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely buy it. I don't know how often you'd play it, just because of the length of time I think it would take to finish one.
Yeah.
But I mean, that shouldn't, frankly, to me, that shouldn't stop you from buying a game, right? Yeah. Some of the best games, have to be put down and picked up the next day. Yeah. So yeah, I would say it's an 8 or 10 on should you buy it or not.
All right. So 10's being don't buy it, 1 being definitely buy it.
Well, you didn't tell me that. You gotta lay down some ground rules.
Usually a 1 is bad, right? Why did we change it? I don't know why I changed it up that
How many Fergusons do we need to rate this on?
You never hear anybody go, we're number 10. So.
Yeah, that's why I did it that way. So I don't know. Maybe that's not right. So, but you think it's high up, so like a 3 or 4 then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely buy it.
Okay. Oh, nice. There it is. Are you trying to play? You got to move out of the way to show it if that's what you're trying to bring up. Look at that game. Crazy.
Look at that.
That's enormous.
Look at that hottie. I think I'm wearing the same damn shirt, aren't I? Might be. Anyways,
it's the only shirt you own.
It is, really is. The only gaming shirt, as you'll see. Cool. Okay, so we got a 3 to 4 out of Wilts. What about you, Chris?
So what did we decide? 1 is very buyable, 10 is not very buyable?
Yes.
Okay. You know, I'm going to have to go higher than Wilts on this one. I own the game. I've owned it for, I don't know, since before it changed owners, you know, that was making it. We've played it maybe twice. If the ranking here is dust factor, this game has collected a lot of dust.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so I would say great game to play at a buddy's house. Don't bring it home. So I'm going to give it a 7 or an 8, unless you're really gung ho about the concept of FireFly, which I am.
Right.
You know,
The
probably
show
not going to
itself,
see a lot of table time.
Gotcha. All right, Johnny?
Yeah, here's a weaselly answer. It depends on the family.
Yeah.
I have now a 16-year-old,
Boo.
and I plan to sit with them and watch FireFly soon.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because
I
they're
think
not
if
old
I-
enough yet.
Well, they're old enough. They
they're
see
plenty old.
YouTube.
Sorry, my family isn't old enough yet.
Come
my
on,
kids are.
start them early.
And they can handle the complexity, and I think they'd appreciate the thematic tie-ins.
Ties in? That works.
So for my family, it's probably a higher likelihood of buying than, say, Chris's with younger kids. Or
Yeah.
Very good point. Okay, so it's, based on the age.
I mean, let's face
So-
the reality that a game of FireFly takes longer than the entire produced work of the FireFly universe.
True. That's true.
So the other factor I consider when and sort of a sub factor in the dust factor is when I say, hey, let's play a game, and I get the teenage boys to put down their devices and say, okay, I don't have work, let's play a game. I don't have 45 minutes to set up a game. My
Yeah.
window is about an hour and a half from setup until
They're out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for that factor, it's not one I would invest in because we need to be into the game and playing it in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Terraforming Mars, we love, and it's about the same complexity, I think, but we all know it, and we sort of set it up on autopilot.
Yeah.
We do the same color every time. We know where the decks go, and we're set up and playing in 5 minutes.
Gotcha. All right. Good
This
stuff.
one you can't get there unless you buy inserts and
Right.
and all the craziness.
Cool.
So I made it.
All
Third
right.
of
Well,
the
that's it. So I mean, I guess we said we got a 3.
three.
We got a reverse 7, 8. What was yours, Johnny?
Which is the most viable number, 10 or 1? I forgot already.
I know 1 is the best. It plays every day. 10 is.
We're measuring on amount of dust, so 10 is the
Yeah,
most
inches.
dust.
Yeah, 10
of
inches of dust. 10 inches of dust. 1 inch
Inches
of
of
dust.
dust,
There we go.
We should keep this international. I give it 1 centimeter of dust.
Ooh, 1.
Nice.
So he loves it. Bring it out all the time. I love it.
I think I could get it out with
Okay.
with the boys.
So it's all over the board. I'm just going to leave it with, to me, it really does come down to when you watch, have them watch it, the series. If they're into the series, love the series, and talk about the series, buy the game and make it happen. If they
Yeah.
don't love the series or it was nice, it was another binger, right, on Netflix or it was, I think it's on Hulu or whatever, then no. And then don't invest the money. Even if you do get a great deal at $10 a whack, don't bother with it. 'Cause it's not going to see it every day. So, all right, good stuff. Going back now.
And
to
let's
the
say
best quality.
we've got it on tabletop too, so you can play it on tabletop for.
Yeah, you
nothing.
could try it. That's
So-
a good point. You could try it on
Right.
tabletop to see if it works. If it's the.
As a
something
side
like that.
comparison, have any of you played the Star Wars Outer Rim game by Fantasy Flight? It looks really similar in style to FireFly.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I know
actually.
maybe this is a spoiler for another episode, but
Yeah.
I'm curious whether that universe being significantly more fleshed out than the Firefly universe, because like I said, there's all of 12 hours of Firefly content in the universe, right?
Right. Yeah. It's a
Is
great
it-
question, man. And me, I was always a fanboy of Fantasy Flight games. I
Oh,
love
yeah,
their
we all
stuff.
love Fantasy Flight.
but I have not played that one. And the only one I've played that's briefly that I want to play more of is that Armada, Star Wars Armada. But again, those games to me are something that are really deeper, eager games and bringing it to the table for the family. I don't know if that one would rank up there, but to your point, I'm sure there's a lot more easy association and quick association because all the kids have seen Star Wars.
Star Wars is a lot more embedded, particularly with younger people.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Everybody knows who Darth Vader is. You don't need to tell him he's the bad guy.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe you're right. We can take a look at that as an option too. So.
Just as an
interesting.
If there's not a game like that, there should be, because I think in that Firefly type game, but with the Star Wars universe, would be a blast.
Yeah.
I think, having not watched a lot of reviews on it, but seen, read up on it a little bit, it looks an awful lot like that's what they were going for with this game. I mean, it's got little sectors, you have little ships that you customize, you fly around, you hire heroes, you do missions. It looks a lot like Firefly the game set in the Star Wars universe.
Right. It's a Firefly the game minus the licensing. Is what
exactly. Right? Well, with different expensive licensing.
Yeah, with more expensive licensing.
Yeah, exactly. With licensing that isn't expired.
Through that. So, all right. So that's the review for Firefly this week. Each week we'll come back with a different one. Quickly segment I want to bring up because I do find it to be amazing. The place to start looking for games. If you don't see one that's already out there, and we'll hit all these different games each and every time we jump on, talking about what's playable, and just lost my thing. What's playable and for the family and what's interesting, but is Kickstarter. So Kickstarter, actually, I keep up with that and watch it. I'm really impressed with the amount of games that are coming out. And I will tell you that a lot of games and a lot of these designers are looking at what we're talking about, meaning, as much as you can go deep into these crazy, 140, for instance, I just bought myself into that Frosthaven, which I think just broke the ultimate record for the most funded game ever at $12-something million. I bought it.
Yeah, the record set by Gloomhaven 3 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, they beat themselves, right, at it, but it's
in a box that's bigger than my car.
It is, the weight of it's like, I think I'm spending like a half a fortune just on the shipping to get it to me. But it was an incredible game designed for gamers, right? Designed for people that want that kind of role-playing experience.
It was designed for people that played Gloomhaven.
Yeah. I mean, why make Gloomhaven became so popular is it was really every positive thing you could pull out of a dungeon crawl or like a RPG game when you sit down and play Dungeons and Dragons, but with a really confined and well set up path for you to take.
So you're a Gloomhaven fan is what I'm getting out of this.
Well,
because I didn't enjoy it.
Never played it. I can't.
You've never played it? How can you comment if you haven't played it?
Well, I can comment because I do nothing but reviewing on this stuff and looking at what the reviews are. And these people are talking about how amazing it is to be able to play the game. That the characters you can develop the characters just like your own, and really are your own. There's just like Dungeons and Dragons where you can come in and out of with death, and if you lose a character, you bring another character in. There's a lot of
people who love it love it.
My point being, though, is that's the opposite on some of the stuff on Kickstarter that's out there, that there's a lot of designers out there that are really saying, look, that's great, right? Those are great games for those hardcore gamers, but let's bring out this game. And that's why I think you see like a Wingspan, why it took off and became so popular, even though I haven't played that either. I've done a lot of review and looking at it, is that it's because it could come to the table, right? And be able to provide a fun experience for anybody quickly as it goes through. Anybody played Wingspan or know the detail on it?
Yeah.
Go for it, John.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, you played it?
Yeah. Chris, you own it, right? Is Chris frozen or is he just quiet? I can't tell.
No,
he's got that look on his
I think
face
he's
like,
frozen.
It's like he's staring at you unforgivingly. Oh, he's gone.
and it's
There
gone.
Hey, you got pissed off that you were reviewing a game you hadn't played.
Played must be. I don't know. It's like, I'm out of here. This show's horrible. There's no backing up.
I'm not associating myself with this garbage.
Right. So, but you
Yeah, Wingspan's awesome.
Oh, now Bogue's frozen.
No, I'm not.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah,
All right,
Wingspan's
you're back,
fantastic.
buddy.
If you haven't played it, we have it on Tabletop Simulator. I bought the there's a DRM a license.
Which is interesting because that was the only one I've seen that you have to pay for, right?
There's a few licensed versions on there.
Yeah.
We could do a whole episode on
Yeah, I know. Right.
Tabletop Simulator, right?
Right. Tell me about it. So,
I mean,
and so when we talk about Kickstarter,
I feel like I'm stealing when it comes to that. I said I feel like I'm stealing when it comes to that tabletop simulator.
yeah,
Right.
All those
So,
great games and don't pay a dime.
I'm of
for
two
it.
minds. I've only played games on there where at least I own a copy of the game. So in that respect,
hmm
the developers have gotten some
Some of your money. Yeah.
That said, if it was developed, by a software engineer that did the coding, they're not getting compensated if I'm getting a free version. But
Right.
it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I haven't played any of the free ones that I don't already own. And if they're available to purchase, I buy the licensed one.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it's well worth the money and stuff like that. It's a great mechanism, right? Tool to learn the game and play and teach others as well on it for sure. And it's interesting because there's conversation about the Kickstarters where when they come out, people are actually now starting, and you're seeing this, starting to convert their games to the tabletop first to get interest in people doing it and then buying it. To your point, Johnny, it's like, well, if it's on here, do I buy it? Well, most of the gaming world will, because they want the physical copy of it, right?
Yep.
To do it. But I don't know, if that'll be a continuing trend or just something that's.
The online version's interesting. It's good to connect with people far away like you guys. But a game like FireFly, it's kind of hard to play.
Yeah.
On tabletop because you have so much you're trying to look at once, right?
Fiddly.
So, he's back.
Well, when they come out with the touchscreen 65-inch Samsung touchscreen, monitor that you can, that would be ideal for a game like that. But it is tough on your laptop screen when you're trying to, scroll across the whole universe. But back to Kickstarter, that stuff amazes me. So, for example, on Frosthaven, they had a goal of $500,000, and they're almost at $13 million already for this thing.
Right.
It blows me away that they gain that kind of money. And I think the highest priced box is what, $260
for both of them.
That's the highest buy-in.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right,
a pretty amazing number.
Yeah.
If you're a game store, you might have bought 100 copies.
Right.
True. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Well, they never have to sell a single copy to turn a huge profit on this so far.
Right. So in the case of something like that, right, they're using it as a pre-order system. They could have just invested the money,
right,
and sold it, and they sold it.
Yeah.
It's different than.
If I can get somebody to get me $14 million before I even go to the printer,
right?
Right.
Yeah,
it's an interest-free loan.
It really
Be
is.
on the lookout for Detecto Spy 2020 because it's going to be a huge one. We just need an artist that can draw up some pictures for us. And
that's the point, though, right? Well, it's different than somebody saying, "Hey, I've got an idea for a game, and I'm a person," and
right.
So I kickstarted a game that's just got funded for. It's called Tipping Point. It's a build your build your little town of your people and with their powers and things. And it's an ecologist, I think, or environmental scientist who had a great idea for a game, and he's made a couple of games, but he's not a multi-million-dollar revenue game company using it as a pre-order system. He's truly kickstarting the game.
Yeah, he's trying to get it going. Yeah. So what we'll do is with the Kickstarter stuff, I guess we're mentioning is that we'll take a look before we jump onto these and put another one out, that we'll talk about, what are some of the Kickstarter games that you think are viable for the table, specifically under the concept of, would it come to your in-law? Would your mother-in-law play? Would your wife play? Is it something you can bring to the table? Is it simple enough? But is it something that would have playability? And if so, then we support going out and Kickstarter and supporting it, because I think that's a big piece of this as well. So, all right, cool. So I think we're just wrapping up the show there, folks. That was a good first one that we ran through. We'll promise to be as pithy as possible as we try to figure our way through this whole first episode on it. So any other comments? I know we set up it's BoardSTIFF.info is our site. You can check it out. It's a little more detail on us if you're just listening or in and out of what we're doing here. You can always comment.
Is it worth your voice being husky?
What's that?
Does it have 40 hours of your voice being husky?
Yes, it does.
This is Shane.
Love it. You're gonna hear it soon again, baby.
This is Bogan. I'm here with you today.
BoardStiffGamer@gmail.com. BoardStiffGamer@gmail.com. That's what we come up with. If you want to email us, send some stuff, questions in as well as we get this thing launched and to friends, most likely friends, family, if we even have the whereabouts to do that. So we appreciate it. Checking us out, listening, each week, or when are we doing this? Every month we say? Every 3 weeks or so? What are we committing to this?
I'm ready to go again. I got 2 hours worth of content just from this conversation on all the stuff I wanted to talk about. How about tomorrow?
Let's keep it going every day, every morning for coffee. That's what we're doing. It's a coffee talk. We're doing coffee talk of board games, right? Good stuff. All right, Mr. Chris, sorry we can't see you right now. I don't know what you did. You got like 5 systems going here. I keep trying to bring
I was trying together a couple of different things and my phone died, so I had to switch over to video or to audio.
Audio. Got it. All right. Well, we got you in most of it. We appreciate you joining. Like I said, we'll all come back here. We'll do another review. We'll set that up, probably put it up ahead of time is what we're going to talk about, and go from there. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for jumping on, and we'll talk down the line, right?
Cool.
Peace.
Right.
Game safe.
All right. Game safe, right? Let's get stimulated. No. Right. Bye, guys.